Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration, and it's 6:30 here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, Thursday, September 22nd. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for everybody for tuning in and joining me here on these shows. I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen and be part of this with me. This is just looking at my healing journey, really continuing on with it, really, and it's just a morning reflection, so. Sort of keeps me accountable, self-accountable, so that I'll continue to work on the issues that I'm working through and continue to make progress in my healing journey. And I just thought, I'd share some of the information with you that I find helpful or interesting or useful. So hopefully it's helping somebody out there. And, not everybody can relate to everything, so, you have to sort of pick and choose. But at least there's some resource information for people that may be struggling and, not know sort of where to go to look for this sort of information, right? So thanks for being here and joining me. I appreciate it. And I'm just drinking coffee, waking up, and we'll get right into this. We're looking at this morning. First of all, if you're a survivor, make sure you're safe enough to be listening. Do like a safety checklist to make sure that you're feeling safe enough to listen to something like this or anything like this. That you're not going to have a miserable day, sort of be triggered, maybe self-injure, hurt yourself, somebody else. If you don't know how to get that information, I found a long time ago, I found information about safety first on adult survivors of child abuse, a Morris Center program, and you can grab that. It's in their Survivor to Thriver workbook. It's a Survivor to Thriver manual, I guess they call it. And it's free. You can download it or you can read it right on their site. I think it's available to read just right on their site. And the first 60 pages is just dedicated to safety first, right? Which is huge. 60 pages. I read that a long time ago, and it was very interesting, and because I had no idea, and about this sort of thing, about triggering and stuff like that, because I never grew up thinking of myself as an abuse survivor, even though CPS was involved in Child Protection Services, and we had social caseworkers coming around with clipboards and checking for abuse and stuff. I really never considered myself to be an abuse survivor. So I never looked into the issues and didn't really know much about it. So when I started my healing journey in 2007, really, 2009 did the bulk of it, or started looking at it. That's when I started to see all this information, right, and learn some of this stuff. So, you want to be sure you're safe enough. And HAVOCA, HAVOCA, that's a Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse. They also have a safety plan, like a safety first section of their website dedicated to that. We're going to actually go through some of that. So you can go to HAVOCA, HAVOCA.org, and get that information there too. Or you can go to ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program, and get the information there. There's many, many places to get that information. So make sure you're safe enough to be listening. And, if you're not sure, turn the show off. It's just not worth putting yourself through that, getting, to be listening to something that might trigger you and cause you to kind of go backwards in your healing journey, or just have a miserable day, or self-injure, or want to hurt yourself or somebody else, right? So make sure that you're safe enough before you listen to any of my stuff. And anything like this, there's a lot of material out there, and you want to make sure you're safe enough, right? So we'll get into this, and, how am I doing on my healing journey, any particular things I need to work on, or this is something I can ask myself every day. That's why I wrote these down. Well, just to look at the progress, to measure it, sort of thing. I'm doing good, continuing on. I'm not feeling too bad. I've had, it's been a little stressful this last few weeks with my husband's health, and just knowing that we have to move, and just a lot of things like that going on. Plus, I'm not getting any sleep because my husband's up quite often. He's very ill, so he spends a lot of the time sleeping during the day, and then he's up roaming around at night, making a lot of noise. And so it's sort of been a stressful little, kind of a busy, stressful kind of a couple of weeks, which has caused me a little bit of distress, and which then causes me to have a little bit more flashbacks, a little bit more unpleasant memories, things like that. So I'm sort of working through some of that. I haven't really had time to do any inner child healing work, which I really need to do. And so, but otherwise I'm doing pretty good, maintaining and managing. And so, yeah, that's at least I'm still working on it. That's one good thing. Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse. It's an acronym from Cheryl from HAVOCA, and we've been looking at it. It's just the letters for adult survivors of sexual abuse, and she's written up some pieces that go with each letter. And she said it's good for anybody, not just people who have survived sexual abuse, so any type of abuse, really. So I think they're interesting. And yesterday's was release your pain by focusing on the good things in life. The positive outweighs the negative by far. See beyond your emotional pain and realize what it's doing to you physically. And so this morning's is share with other survivors. S for the S in survivors, the last S. Share with other survivors. It's amazing what can be learned from each other, a wealth of information. There are so many people that stay silent and through reading stories learn that they are not alone. And through shared experiences, survivors become stronger in facing their own. Sharing means healing. Healing brings inner peace. That's awesome. So, yeah, share with other survivors. That's what I started doing when we started reaching out. And, that's when actually the progress started to be made, because as soon as I reached out to other people, especially survivors of abuse, all these hands came back to me to help pull me along. And they were like, you could do this, you can do this. And it was very positive, very helpful. That's sort of where I began my healing journey, was when I started reaching out. I really wasn't going to do much on it, I don't think, to make any progress while I was working on it by myself. So I found it very helpful to reach out and to get help and to realize that I was, I wasn't alone, and there were other people that knew what I had been through and, could relate to a lot of what I was talking about, and what my issues were. Excuse me. So I think it's very helpful, and I like what she's had what she says there. And that's from Havoka.org. That's Cheryl's writing this stuff, so I don't know. She might be one of the main contributors, or actually the person that's actually responsible for that website. I'm not sure. But these are really, really interesting to look at. So that's this morning's. Sharing means healing. Healing brings inner peace. That's awesome. And they also have this section looking at the inner child healing work. And this is where we left off yesterday, taking a look at feeling the feelings. This is Havoka as well. I'm not sure who wrote this information up, but it's Havoka.org. Information for survivors under the Inner Child tab. You can go to their website there. And if you look under survivors, just click on the survivor tab, and then on the left-hand side there's going to be a bunch of little tabs that you can click on. And Inner Child is one of them. And this particular section is feeling the feelings. So continuing on from where we left off yesterday, she says, Western civilization has for many years been way out of balance towards the left brain way of thinking, concrete, rational. What you see is all there is. And this was in reaction to earlier times of being out of balance the other way, towards superstition and ignorance. So, because emotional energy cannot be seen or measured or weighed. For instance, she says, she puts in quotes, the X-ray shows you've got 5 pounds of grief in there. And emotions were discounted and devalued. And this has started to change somewhat in recent years, but most of us grew up in a society that taught us that being too emotional was a bad thing that we should avoid. So certain cultures, subcultures, give more permission for emotions, but those are usually out of balance to the other extreme of allowing the emotions to rule. So the goal is balance between mental and emotional, between intuitive and rational. So emotions are a vital part of our being for several reasons. And then she lists these off here, whoever wrote this. Let's see, there's four of them. And we'll just look at the number one here this morning. It says, because it is energy, and energy cannot just disappear. The emotional energy generated by the circumstances of our childhood and early life does not go away just because we are forced to deny it. It is still trapped in our body in a pressurized explosive state as a result of being suppressed. This is, if we don't learn how to release it in a healthy way, it will explode outward or implode back in on us. Eventually it will transform into some other form, such as cancer, etc. Right? That's interesting. Yeah, this is just it. I mean, emotions, even today there's lots of people that would say, that, it's not good to allow our emotions to be seen, or to, that they just don't have any value, they don't count, sort of thing. But emotions are there for a reason, or we wouldn't have them. You know what I mean? It's the balance that I think that's important. What she's talking about there. There's a balance there. It's the goal is the balance between mental and emotional, between intuitive and rational. And if we don't have any emotions and we just shut them all off and suppress them all, we're going to have problems. like they're saying, or if we become too emotional and our emotions run our life and rule our, our very state of being, that's not good either. There has to be a balance. And I mean, so many of us, even people who have not been abused, have problems with their emotions and dealing with their emotions. So it's not just an issue of people who have been abused. I know that. I've known people who grew up in perfectly good homes who have emotional problems. And it wasn't stemming from any kind of abuse or anything like that. It's sometimes it could be chemical, could be it could be something within the body, like a chemical issue in the brain or something, or anything like that. It could be our own health issues. It could be just something that they've picked up along the way that didn't have anything to do with abuse, you know what I mean? So it's not that just because somebody's over-emotional or suppresses their feelings that they've been abused. It's just that for survivors of abuse, quite often this is sort of the case. I know that emotions were a real problem in our home when I was growing up. We were not allowed to show emotion, and that was basically because my mom didn't want to deal. My mother was diagnosed manic depressive, which back then that's what they used to call it, but they changed it to bipolar later on, the name of it. But she was manic depressive, so she was either really low or really high, both extremes. Like she was rarely in between. So she was either really, really happy or really, really down, and she had anger issues. And so, just depending on what was happening, for in her world that day, is how I was going to be treated. So her emotions were all that were allowed in the home. None of her children, which was me and my other siblings, were not allowed to show any emotion. Just only her. And so it was kind of, I grew up very twisted because I was not allowed to show any emotion for what was going on and what I was experiencing as a child. So it was very difficult. And then I began to use drugs to mask things and shut the emotions down, so I could control them. And I used a lot of drugs for about 10 years as a young person. And then but I was kind of like the party scene person, and then got over that, got off the drugs, and then as a young adult, I wanted to sort of make it, so I couldn't afford to cave in on myself at that point. So I just kept suppressing it, work, and stay busy. This is a serious issue for so many people because, eventually this all caught up with me. And at the age of 41 and a half, I couldn't deal with it anymore. I couldn't figure out how to suppress them anymore. And so I was out of balance in the other extreme, which then became over-emotional, and then that's kind of what happened, sort of set me over the edge. So very, very difficult. And I would just suggest that people get help. I wish I would have got help a long time ago. That's what I've said through the years here now. Since I've been on my healing journey, I wish that I would have gotten help. So it's important. I wish that I would have gotten help in my 20s, or even in my late teens even, right? But it just didn't happen. So, now I'm dealing with the aftermath of all that. But it's like she said, or whoever wrote this, if it's Cheryl or I'm not sure, it doesn't say. But it's just like this emotional energy is still trapped in our body unless we safely and healthily, find a good way to actually deal with it. So otherwise it's pressurized, an explosive state. It can either be that or it can be an implode, right? And mine was actually both. I could explode at any time, and I could also implode at any time. And I've done it many times in my lifetime, and I still do it to a certain extent. It's not as explosive, so it doesn't make such a mess. But it's still there. I'm still dealing with a lot of that stuff. So it's hard to learn how to do this sort of thing properly, and that's why I'm still looking for information that's helpful and still working through a lot of my stuff. So we'll look at the number 2 tomorrow. So we'll move on. But yeah, that's just interesting. I think it's good to look at this stuff. And if you're a survivor of abuse, you just make sure you reach out and get some help. That's what I'm saying, man. I wish I would have done that a long time ago. And wasted years. Really, it's a shame. Positive reinforcement. What am I doing right in my daily walk? Looking at positives and progress instead of just always negative thoughts. Because it's too easy to get down on ourselves and say, oh, I wish I would, I never do this, or I don't do this right, or, how come I just never get anything done, or things like this, right? And we got to look at the positives, too, and count that in there as well. So that it's just too easy to be too down on ourselves, right? So I don't know. I think I'm doing pretty good, continuing on and carrying on and willing to reach out now and get help. I think that's the biggest, most important thing. instead of trying to do this on my own all the time. So I still do some of that, but I know that I can reach out now, whereas before I would never have done that. So it's that's a positive, you know. And I woke up this morning and I'm feeling pretty good, so that's a positive. We just got to count all these little positives, and you know that I think that's important because we, you know, that's got to be counted in there too, not just the negative. What didn't I get done, and just always focusing on the negative stuff. A positive affirmation from this one website. This is called. This is all. They don't have very many, but there's a few more here. But this was from Hearts with Soul, and I went on their website. They don't have a whole lot of information there now. It's really old website from like 2001. Heartswithsoul.com, and there's not a whole lot of info there now. But they did have this great list of these positive affirmations. Dealing with maybe for adult survivors of child abuse, right? So I think this is really neat to look at. These are really good. This one is, I think we looked at this yesterday. I feel great hope. No, I think this is one. This is a new one. I feel great hope. So I could walk around all day saying I feel great hope. But if I don't have hope, you know, then that's not going to ring a bell. It's not going to stay with me. You know, I feel great hope. Actually, I do have, you know, my spiritual wellness is really well. So I don't have any problems there. So I do have hope, right? But I didn't always used to have hope. So this is me today having hope. But before I started my healing journey, I had no hope. Zero hope. I was down to the very lowest point I'd ever been in my lifetime. You know, ever, including being abused and horrifically abused, at the age of 41 and a half. You know, I really felt that I was done. I couldn't go any further. I really had no hope at all. I wasn't even sure how I was going to get through the night. And, you know, I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I was like, I can't even see how I'm going to take another breath. That's how bad it got. And so from remembering back where I was there in 2007 to today, you know, September 22nd, 2016. I mean, next year will be 10 years. I mean, I feel great hope. And that's the progress that I've made. See, that's why this stuff is really important to do, to sort of check mark our progress, you know, to keep track of the progress. I really find that very helpful for me because I can go back and I can say, wow, I remember where I was in that black pit there for a long time. And now I look at my life now and I look at myself and my well-being and whatnot, and I think, wow, I mean, I've come full circle, really, just so far away from that black pit, you know. I still remember what it's like to be there, you know, and I remember what caused it, and I remember what, you know, I'm not in denial, that's for sure. But, I mean, I can literally say, man, I have hope. And that's a nice position to be in. That's a nice place to be in, you know, to be able to say, today I feel great hope. And I do. I feel great hope, you know, that I'm going to make a lot more progress in my healing journey and eventually, you know, accept my whole self and be accepting of my whole life and learn how, you know, eventually learn to completely make peace, you know, with my life, with my past, and with myself. So I feel great hope, you know, and I feel great hope that I can get through today. And I mean, that's just a big thing. I mean, for a lot of people, right? I mean, I feel great hope that I can do today what I need to do to take care of myself, you know, reach out if I can't do it, get some help. It's, you know, there's no shame in that. See, I used to always think, because we were brought up and told that there is no help. And then the CPS Child Protection Services came, and they came for a couple of years, or about a year and a half, and they signed off the case. They disappeared, and the abuse started again. There's no help. You know, I mean, this was ingrained in us from birth, right? There's no help, man. And I mean, you know, my two parents were my abusers. I didn't have a parent I could run to, you know, if one of my parents was abusing me, I couldn't run to the other parent and try to get comfort or even protection from either one of them because they were both my abusers. So there was no hope, you know. And my siblings we were all played against each other by my parents, so in order to avoid abuse, right? So it's like I couldn't run to one of my siblings, you know. There wasn't any hope, right? So I ran to drugs, right? And I ran to the streets. So there wasn't any hope out there either. I did, you know, I'm thankful for my friends to help me get through, but it was just another set of abuse, but just on this sort of to deal with doing with drugs, and violent behavior from that. So, I know where I was. I know where I've been, and I can sort of make those analysis, looking back at where I've been, and where I am today, and I'm like, wow, it's amazingly, it's different for me today. You know what I mean? I do feel great hope, and I feel great hope that, I'm going to make it. Right? That's why I'm doing these shows. It's not just for me. I mean, I really want other survivors to know you can do this. You can make it. And you have to do the work, right? Just like I do. Nobody's going to do this for me. I have to do the work. So it's important to remember that, but also reaching out and getting help, because we can't do it on our own. And there's no shame in asking for help. See? And if you can't get help, and you find that the help that you've sort of received along the way isn't helpful, then you need to keep reaching out and get the help that you need. And, if we find like a counselor or a therapist or whatever that's not working, then we need to get another one. Because we just need to keep looking until we get that help that we need. I've seen that on so many websites, and it's so true. I've talked to a lot of survivors, actually, who've had this issue in their lives where things were not working out with their therapist, and they just, they just kept looking until they found one. And then they were really happy because they found one that actually really related to them, and they were starting to get help, right? And in our communities, we just need to reach out and get some help, right? So I feel great hope. I really do. And that's a nice place to be, right? Self-care, what are we doing physically, spiritually, emotionally, right, to care for ourselves? What can we do to help ourselves out, right? I want to look at actually I'm doing pretty good physically. I'm still not able to get on the routine of yoga and all this that I wanted to start, beginning yoga, breathing exercises, rowing and stuff like that. It's all been put off to the side because I'm really too busy right now trying to get ready to move and all this stuff. But I'll be getting some exercises when I start cleaning and packing and all that. So I thought, okay, that's all right. I'll do my exercises then. So yeah, otherwise I'm doing pretty good. And but what can I do self-care? This is just like getting proper rest, right? I actually made sure that I got more sleep last night. I tried to anyway, because I really don't sleep well at all. And I don't want to start using pills to sleep, right? So, I just try to, it's really difficult. I'm really only get about 3-4 hours of sleep a night. This has been going on forever. I'm just exhausted most of the time. I just walk on exhaustion. That's how I live my life, right? So most people don't recognize that I'm exhausted. They just think this is how I am, but they don't realize it's from from birth, really, from being abused and being woken up in the middle of the night and abused. And, just my dad was mentally ill and was up all night, terrorizing the family. My mom was abusing me during the day. My dad was abusing me at night. My brother was abusing me sexually at night for a year. So I've really never slept well. And, I used to sleep with a knife under my bed and stay awake at night, listening for somebody to come and kill me, because my dad was always threatening to kill us at night. So I've never really slept well. And even as an adult now, I find it very, very difficult to shut my ears off and tune things out and actually go to sleep. Even if I had, earplugs in, I still don't sleep well. It's a vicious cycle of training, years and years and years of being trained, self-training, I guess, self-protection, to stay awake and keep my ears open, you know what I mean? So I've never slept well, and so it's catching up with me. I'm almost 51 years old here. I'm exhausted, and I'm like, I need some sleep, man. I really do. I need some extra sleep. So I actually went to bed last night really early. I thought, man, I'm going to get some sleep, and it didn't help. I actually only got the same amount that I actually always get, so it didn't make any difference. So, but at least I'm working on it, right? To realize that I do need more rest, and I need to get some more sleep, and that I need, to try to, even if it's a half an hour nap or something, right? And it's like, see, these things are important to take a look at. What can I do to help myself, right? Personal Bill of Rights. We're looking at Charles H. Whitfield's Personal Bill of Rights here. And this is next up. This is interesting. He's got, 38 of these. 38. It's from Healing the Child Within, Charles H. Whitfield, MD. And you can find this all over the place. It's online. It's everywhere. And I just happened to see it on Pinterest. And these are really cool. I think this is really awesome. So we're on number 35, and we'll just check this out here. 35 says, actually that was yesterday. I have the right to trust others and who earn my trust, right? Now this morning, 36, I have the right to forgive others and to forgive myself. That's the next one up. I have the right to forgive others and to forgive myself. Yeah, it is my right to forgive others, and that's also my right to not forgive others. Let's keep that in mind too. Forgiveness is a personal issue. And I don't like it when people start telling me that I need to do this, that I need to do that. All I do is tell people you need to reach out and get help. If you need help, get help. I'm not going to sit there and tell somebody, oh, you need to forgive and forget and move on. That's a personal issue. And I've had many, many people tell me that. Well, you should just forgive. Even my abuser, Dad, even told me, oh, you should just move on, forgive and forget, because he's a Christian, see. And he's never ever made any attempt to apologize for the abuse. Even when I called him out on it after I wrote my book and showed him the book and gave it to him to read, I'm like, it's all true, Dad. It's all there. I wrote my books and I put them out there for the world to see, and you can read it. It's all true. There's nothing in there that's not true. And he was just like, he couldn't believe it. But he never apologized ever for what he did to any of us in the family. My dad abused our whole family. So it wasn't just me. He abused my mother horrifically, as well as my brothers and my sister and me. One of my sisters, I think, got away sort of free from the abuse by keeping herself sort of hidden away all the time. My older sister is 5 years older than me. She was really the only one, I think, that did escape most of the abuse, because she just stayed very quiet, hiding in the corner most of the time. And so I was the next down, so I got the brunt of it. Right? So this is just it. It's like, no, I can forgive who I choose. So I think it's like this one. I have the right to forgive others. I do have the right to forgive others, but I also have the right to choose who I'm going to forgive. That's my choice, and it's nobody's choice but our own. I don't like it when people start telling me, or when I read something and says we must forgive in order to, it's like, no, maybe you needed to do that, but not everybody does. For me, I did, like I said in my show yesterday, I actually forgave my abusers, and the reason I did it was for my own personal peace, interior, internal peace. I didn't forgive what they did to me. No, I'm not going to forgive their actions ever, and I forgive them because they were sick. And they're almost all dead now. I'm not sure if my abuser dad is still living or not. I've cut my dad is really old. He was anyway. I don't know if he's still alive, but he's mentally ill, very psychologically ill. And so I cut contact off with him quite a few years ago now. But I forgive my abusers because they were very sick, mentally ill, sick people who were very evil as well. So it's not that they were just mentally ill. I know lots of people who have mental issues, and they're fine. These three abusive people in my home who were my abusers, my mom and dad and my brother, were evil. Right? So I'm never going to forgive their actions. No. What they did to me was wrong. It was horrific. They never asked for forgiveness. They never cared that they hurt me. And they didn't care. They were probably glad that they hurt me. They were glad they hurt all their children. It was horrific. So no, I don't forgive what they did. But I just forgive them because I know how twisted and sick they really were. And so in order for me to make peace, I've done that. And also to forgive myself. I don't know if I really need forgiveness for myself as far as that goes, to forgive myself for the abuse. I didn't have anything to do with that abuse. I was just the target and the recipient of the abuse. So did I cause the abuse? No, not ever. So I don't have to forgive myself. And I don't really like that stuff about, talking about, oh, we need to learn to forgive ourselves, for some of the feelings that we've had or the anger and whatnot. That was manifestation of the abuse, and I don't need forgiveness for that. That was caused by the abuse, so I don't have to try to forgive myself for that. You know what I mean? That was not my fault, right? So these are some huge things to think about, right? Now I can forgive myself if I want to. I have the right to do that. But then again, for me, this one's it's a difficult issue, forgiveness, and I think it's very important to make sure that we're comfortable with what we're doing and don't be railroaded into something that just because somebody else feels that's what they need to do. Because, that's for them, that worked for them. This is the issue. Some of this stuff doesn't work for all of us, right? And we're all different. We all have different needs and different ways of coping and different ways of dealing with things. So, we're all different. So you make sure that you get the help that you need. And, I just read some of this stuff out, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. But we have about a minute left, so yeah, just take really good care of yourselves. If you're struggling, like I say on every show, you make sure you reach out and get some help. I don't care, call a crisis line. I've made a promise to myself, after the age of 41 and a half, coming out of that pit of despair and depression, really, I made a promise to myself, that I would, if I ever got down that low again, I would call a crisis line. Yeah, I would. I care enough about myself nowadays. I care enough about myself to get help. So make sure that you do. And take good care of yourselves, everybody. Be really good to yourself today. Do something nice. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be really good to myself today. And in doing so, I'm going to be good to other people around me as well. And I hope that you have a really awesome day. Be good to yourself. Take good care, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.